Welcome to The Abundance Journey, the show that helps spiritual entrepreneurs create an abundance mindset that accelerates revenue. Here's your host, the Abundance Ambassador, Elaine Starling.
You know, I absolutely love spiritual growth. And the funny thing is, it reminds me a lot of an infomercial. I mean, if you've ever seen an infomercial, they always say, but wait, there's more, right? They throw in all this bonus stuff. Well, yeah, that's because when it comes to life and spiritual growth, there's more consciousness, there's more connection, there's more expansion, there's more manifestation, there's more intuition, and even lots more things that we don't even have words for, but we do experience them. Very interesting. So if you adore spiritual growth the way I do, you're going to fall in love with today's guest, because in spite of sometimes kind of bumpy road on the spiritual journey, she's been blessed beyond measure in her spiritual growth. Barbara DeLong has been a seeker of the mysteries of spirituality and a practitioner for over half a century. At least that's what she's willing to admit to. It might be a little longer. But during that time, she's become an internationally known podcast host for her show, Nightlight Radio. I got to be a guest on her show. It's fabulous. You really want to listen to it. She's also an author, an artist, a lecturer, an ordained minister, and a documentarian. In fact, Barbara has painted over 500 spiritually guided mandalas, and she's used several of them for her cosmic deck of initiation. These are oracle cards for private divination and spiritual growth. I mean, is this perfect or what? Then she wrote the handbook, How to Use the Cosmic Deck of Initiation. I love her website, and I really want you to check it out, BarbaraDeLong.com. And I'll make sure that it's in the show notes so it's easy for you to find, because her website is a teaching site. It combines personal information with a ton of great spiritual material that's intended to supply insight and light and laughter and love for everyone who's seeking their own personal pathway within these spiritual spheres. Barbara, I am so thrilled you're here today.
Well, I'm thrilled to be here for sure, because working with you is sort of like going to the amusement park. There's always another cool ride right around the corner. And it's such a joy to be able to speak with someone that speaks the same language as I do, and enjoys the ride as much as I do, and looks around for what's next. And the cool thing is that the rides don't cost anything. They just take, your willingness to embrace what spirit has to offer us. And I think that's the most important thing. As humans, we often get so caught up in the day-to-day minutia that we forget we're a spirit down here learning and understanding and growing. And the more that we listen to the spirit that is carried within, the more fun it is. And I don't think that once I got to that point that I've had anything that hit me that would have knocked people off their socks. And it's like I sit back and say, well, what a wonderful challenge. This must mean I've grown and that I'm able to get through this.
Yes.
And where am I going to reach to? What creative modality am I going to utilize to grow beyond what is staring me in the face? And every time I have listened for a synchronicity in my life, and those synchronicities, they come heavy and hard and light and fun, but they're all over the place. And the spirit within is constantly giving us these hints. Now, the spirit within isn't going to say, go here, go there, do this, do that. But it will give you tools and insights as to directions that might be beneficial to you.
Yeah, and I'm going to tell everybody right now, if you're in a place where you can take notes, because Barbara is so freaking genius. I mean, honestly, I had to quick start the recording because she kept saying things. And I'm like, you have to say that again when we're recording. Wait, you have to say that again when we're recording, because that's really good. So before we jump in, because I am so ready to go there with you, Barbara, I want to make sure that we connect our energy, because it's so powerful when we connect my energy with yours, with everyone in the audience, as well as with the God of our understanding. I tend to call this the divine. I know you've got different terms that you use, but there are two key things that I like to do that really connect our energy. The first one is we're going to take 3 long, slow, deep breaths together. And as we breathe in through the nose, think the words, I am. And as we breathe out through the mouth, think the word consciousness. Then after those 3 breaths, I'm going to share an intention with everyone. And then we're going to hold that intention in silence for 78 seconds. And I know how challenging that can be. It can be challenging for me too. So there's 2 key tips that I have for making sure you get through those 78 seconds with grace and ease. The first one is to pick 2 or 3 words out of the intention that just feel expansive and uplifting and the high vibration you really want to embody. And just repeat those 2 or 3 words over and over again in your mind during the 78 seconds. Now, the second thing is notice what's happening in your body, because sometimes I'll get a rush of heat or it feels like there are ripples expanding beyond my body. Anything that you notice that's happening in the physical realm is just a sign that the divine has locked into your new vibration and is going to take you to fulfill that intention. So it's all a good sign. So are we ready to play? All right, let's get going with the 3 deep breaths. Breathe in, I am. Breathe out, consciousness. Breathe in, I am. Breathe out, consciousness. Breathe in, I am. Breathe out, consciousness. In love and light, we hold the intention that we embrace our infinite journey of spiritual growth, so we enjoy lives of vibrant health, prosperity, and delight. Thank you, Divine. Thank you, thank you, thank you. It is done. We give thanks, and so it is. Oh boy, is there energy around this, Barbara. Oh my gosh, that was intense. I started getting downloads.
Well, good. Take notes.
Yeah, no kidding. What was that like for you?
It powerful. As we said earlier, the one word that keeps coming to me over and over and over, and certainly during that 78 seconds, was peace. And it's profoundly been brought up to me that it's an important thing for us to focus on and remember that while we're all very, very different and unique, and no two are the same, like snowflakes or grains of sand or stars in the skies. We're all unique, but that means that we can experience compromise, and that's important. And peace is something that we have to have first within ourselves and then extending outwards. Peace is not something you can force. It's something you have to embrace.
I love that.
And if you don't have peace inside of yourself, you have no right to try to make peace on someone or something else.
It is so true, because what we are ripples out. And,
exactly.
It's really interesting, because I've had this conversation with a lot of people about all of the conflict that we're witnessing, especially if you watch the news or you spend much time on social media. There seems to be a lot of diatribe. It's not really dialogue. It's like, it's trying to attack each other. And I was reminded of the book Power versus Force by David Hawkins. And I really love that book, because at one point he says, look, when you decide that you are going to show up as the consciousness of love, that's at a level 500. When you are the consciousness of love, you think love, you speak love, you act love, everything you receive is love, everything that you do, feel, say, experience with your body, it's all love. And you are pure love. As soon as you commit that you are going to be that love in all things and all situations, the opposite shows up. And I was like, well, that's a bummer. And he's like, yeah, because you have to recommit. Life is there to throw you off course. And it's really interesting, Barbara, if I could just share a quick story, because this blew me away. It's all about why we are alive. Because during my stroke, I was blessed to have a stroke on New Year's Day, 2005, in a conversation with our higher power. And during the conversation, they asked me a rhetorical question. They said, okay, everything is love. You are love. The chair you're sitting in is love. The recording you're listening to is love. The God of your understanding is love. So how do you expand love if everything is already love? I was stumped. I had no clue. And they said, well, we decided to create human beings who don't think that everything is love, who experience contrast, the difference between what is wanted and what is not wanted. And that friction forces you to make a choice. You either choose fear and you step back to try to stay safe, or you choose love. You step forward without knowing what's happening, without knowing how it's going to turn out. You're open, you're vulnerable, but you're willing. And that willingness to be love in the moment expands the divine. You are alive because this is the expansion joint of the divine. This is how we grow. And I was like, whoa. And so the other thing that was a really important insight, I love this little thing. It's called a weeble. And it's got a round bottom. And it's because I tell all my clients, we're weebles. We wobble, but we don't fall down. We go out of alignment. And then we remember, we go, oh, shoot, I'm out of alignment. And so then we use the tools, tips, and techniques to get back into alignment. And that movement from out to back in is what is literally expanding the divine. That is the whole thing. So it's not about always being perfectly in alignment and always embodying the perfection of all that is. No, it's about being human. It's about going out of alignment and then deliberately putting yourself back into alignment.
Yeah, I want to give you an alternative interpretation of what you said at the very beginning, that you are love and you realize it and you're radiating it, and then suddenly you attract to yourself somebody who is a creep. And the reality is, we are electromagnetic beings. We attract to ourselves like energy. So the challenge is, in that creep is the same sort of love that you're experiencing. And perhaps your recognizing it allows the other person to recognize it and react to it and become it.
Oh, I love that. I love that because, one of the other messages that I received, because I was sending out prayers to everyone. And I felt like this was important to send love and blessings to everyone. And I was given an image of a harbor where the water had left, the water was out, the tide had gone out, and all these boats are on their sides in the bay waiting for the tide to come back in. And I was shown the deep grooves and channels in the bay. And then when the water comes back in, it fills those deep holes first before it gets to the bottom of the boats, and then it lifts all the boats. And I received the message, those who most need love are those who have forgotten how to love.
Exactly. I had a lady, a neighbor, who hated the people that owned the house that I bought. She hated them with a vengeance. And so I did not inherit the neighbor, I inherited her hate. And she was pretty vicious to me for a long time. And it got to the point where she challenged me. And it was like inside I was saying, well, first of all, you're no challenge. I can beat you being nasty. But the reality is you must be hurting so bad that you can't put out love. And so I started to compliment her. And she would throw a zinger at me and I would compliment her garden. And she would throw a zinger at me and I would compliment her. And no matter what she said, I said something nice back to her. And as I was walking on down the road with my dog, the universe said, that was the higher road for sure. But what you did was, she was putting a mirror up to you, what you would become if you responded in kind.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Whoa. Oh, that is so powerful. A mirror of what you would become. I'm writing this down. If you responded in kind. Wow. Yeah. It's so funny. I have a new kind of routine that I do. I usually tell people before I do it so they don't think I'm completely nuts. I like to say, I'm so happy. I'm so grateful. I'm so blessed, and really feel that energy, that enthusiasm, that passion, that delight in my body, because I know that that's the energy I'm putting into the mirror of the universe, and it gets reflected back to me in all kinds of fun, surprising, outrageous ways.
Yeah. And I think, my first reaction was, growing up, I had a very sharp tongue, so I didn't have a lot of friends. And so I'm capable of saying the nasty things and being being mean. But with this lady, I felt so bad for her that, and she was no challenge,
Right. Well, Barbara, I want to take you back because you've been doing this for a while.
Yeah.
Was there something in particular that really got you started? And why are you just so passionate about sharing this with everyone? You're so generous about it. I mean, insightful and generous. And I can't thank you enough for that.
Wow. I guess I got started, spiritually speaking, when I had a second bad marriage, and I took a class in spiritual development at the local high school, and the teacher, it was very basic, meditation and explanation, and his at the end of his teaching, he had all of his classes come together, and he brought a spiritualist minister in to do platform mediumship. And my mother went with me. And afterwards I said to her, if I could touch people the way he has touched people, I would feel like I was doing something important in the world. And so, I scoped the minister out, and he had a class, and my husband was off at sea because he was away for 6 months and then home for 6 months. And I called to sign up for the class, and I was told that it was full and that they would call me if there was an opening. And we had one of our famous nor'easters, and we had lost power. And so I was sitting in the house with my son and the dogs and the cats, and the phone rang. And it was the church saying someone had dropped out, and there was room, and the class was starting the following whatever. And I said, great, I'll be there. And I hung up the phone, and I picked the phone back up to call my mother and tell her how excited I was. And the phone lines were still down.
Yeah, well, when a blessing wants to come through, it definitely comes through, right?
And I studied in that class for 7 years. And he did homework assignments each week. And one of the homework assignments was a mandala. And I did a mandala for a friend. And that grew into over 500 of them all over the world, and a deck of cards and handbook and stuff like that over the years. But as the class was doing very well, and he said, we're going to do an evening in church, and everybody's going to do a part of the service. And I was new in the group, and I thought, okay, I could take collection, and he, in each class we sat in darkness, and people gave messages, and I got bored listening to somebody saying, oh, I feel this and I see that. And so I got bored, and I'm very creative, and I felt, well, it's dark. Nobody can even see me. I'm just going to say, oh, I feel this and I see this. And everybody said, yeah, you're dead on. And I thought, well, you're crazy and I'm making this up. And so as he was giving people assignments, I didn't get one, and I thought, okay, I get off scot-free. And as I was leaving, he said, oh, by the way, Barbara, you're doing the platform. And I backed up, and I said to him, you realize, of course, that I'm faking. And he said, no, you're not. You're actually a natural. First one I've seen. And I said, no, I'm faking. I'm making this up. And he said,
but no, that's why I was coming into your mind, right? That's why.
I said, wow. I'm faking. I'm not lying to you. I'm faking this. And he said, you'll be fine. And if you're really uncomfortable, have some of your friends come and give them messages. And I thought, I can do that. And I had 5 friends I thought were my friends. I gave each of them $20, and I said, please come, scatter yourself through. It was 300-400 people. And I said, just scatter yourself and let me call on you and say, yes, thank you. And so I sat there feeling very cocky through the entire service. I'm getting off like crazy. And he pulled me up on the platform, and he said, Barbara's going to do the platform, and he backed up and sat down. And I looked at all these faces, and none of my friends were there. They had started I should have paid him afterwards. They had obviously decided to start without me. And so I thought, well, I've made myself a fool in front of larger groups of people. I'm sure that this is nothing. So I gave messages to people for about 15 minutes. And, he cleared his throat. I sat down and I said to him under my breath, hope you're satisfied. And he said, that was perfect. And afterwards, people came up and, do you do readings? That was wonderful. That was miraculous. That's what I needed. Da, 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 da. And I thanked everybody. And I looked at him and I said, I was faking. I just said whatever came into my head. I was faking. He said, you're a natural. It took him 7 years to convince me.
Wow.
That what I have is an amazing gift, and I can click in and click on in a heartbeat.
Wow, that is so beautiful.
I don't need, the meditation and everything else. And so that was where it all began. And it just snowballed from there.
Do you want to create real change in your life? Well, it all starts with alignments and actions. Each week, I'll send you powerful tools for spiritual alignment. These are practical tips that help you reconnect with the divine and raise your vibration. Plus, you'll get conscious actions. These are spiritually empowered steps that help you take effective, aligned action towards your dreams. Just go to www.theabundancejourney.com/A&A and start turning inspiration into transformation. Are you struggling to create the abundance that you want? Well, you don't have to work harder. You just need to understand how abundance works. I've got a free abundance journey training that reveals 5 simple steps that shift you out of scarcity and into flow, freedom, and fulfillment. You'll learn how to rewire your mindset, embody abundance instantly, and co-create with the divine. So life starts working for you and not against you. You can watch for free right now. Just go to www.theabundancejourney.com/basics. Yeah, just basics, and start living in flow. It's really interesting. I asked the same question of everybody, and I've never had the same answer twice, which I love. Given the kind of work that you do and how you click in effortlessly to receive divine messages and support people with these divine messages, how do you define abundance?
Well, abundance for me is the opportunity to share what I have.
I love that.
And to take the story even further, when the minister and his wife, both who were mediums and ministers, when they both had passed away, I was the first person to stand in that platform as the minister after their deaths. And, you know, it was like you can't step in their shoes, but you can put yours next to them.
Yeah.
And, you know, I basically said to the congregation, I am not worthy to give you a sermon, but what I am very experienced at is making mistakes. So let me share my mistakes with you, give you the theory behind what was going on, so that you don't make my mistakes, you make your own. And I found that after the first service, I bored everyone. Everyone took a nap. The organist took a nap and fell on her keyboard. No, I'm not lying. I took a nap. And I was so surprised that they asked me back. And then I said to them, look, this is me. And I found that if I could get them laughing, the message would get across. And so after that, it was, I would share my stupidity with them, making sure that I made fun of only me and my ill-advised thoughts, and let me be the lesson to them to not do the same thing, to find their own stupidity. And to this day, I still get people, you know, coming up to me. There was one service where I handed out rose quartz hearts to everybody. I dumped them all into the collection plate, and I had them all hand out, and everybody got one. And I said, okay, now I want you to put it in your hand, and I want you to hold on to it as tightly as you can, and keep holding on to it, holding on tight. Do not, you just, and I talked for quite a while, and I said, so are your knuckles white? And they all said, yeah. And I said, does it hurt to hold on that tight? And they all said, yeah. And I said, now open your hand and just let the heart rest in the palm of your hand. Let it warm to you. And I said, you're feeling the warmth? Yep. Are you feeling it tingling in your hands? Yep. I said, that's what love is. If you hold it and grasp it and don't let it grow, it will eventually hurt. But if you let it rest within you, and if you experience its warmth, it will grow, and you will feel the tingling all over your body.
Wow. Wow. And what a profound message.
It was great. And people came up to me. I was in Connecticut then, but they would come up to me 15, 20 years later and reach in their pockets and show me their heart, and that they still had the pink quartz heart.
That is so beautiful. Well, Barbara, obviously you've worked with hundreds and hundreds of people over the years. Yep. Hopefully you've noticed a few commonalities, a few common threads. Where do we typically get stuck? I believe we typically get stuck when we're ready to go on to the next level of consciousness. And, you know, it feels like I'm not growing, I'm not going anywhere, nothing's happening in my life. What am I doing wrong? And what you're doing wrong is
looking at your creativity and saying, where do we go from here? What's the next step? I did Nightlight for 15 years on Blog Talk Radio. And they suddenly went out of business, and we got notice that we had to move to another venue. And at first I panicked and I thought, oh my gosh, I can't learn something else. What is going on? And then I realized when I said I have to learn, it was like in 15 years, I hadn't learned another modality. I hadn't learned, and I hadn't stretched myself. And so I had to, I had a great tech that helped me. Razor Group Technology, fabulous, absolutely wonderful man. He helped me to move my show to another place, which we now do video with, and he also and the other thing that I learned a long time ago was, I said to him, I'm not familiar with any of this, and he said back to me, which made me love him even more, I'll teach you. So it was not me relying upon him, but it was him teaching me so that I could move into another stage. And I think that's what happens when we feel stuck. It means that it's time to grow. And it doesn't necessarily mean professionally. It could be personally. It could be creatively. Lots of different ways. And, when people come to me and say, I'm stuck, nothing's happening, the first thing I ask them, what are you doing creatively? Because chances are they are not doing anything creative, and it's the creativity that opens the door to the next level, to the next step. And if you're not being creative in your life, you're not growing. So of course your life is going to stand still until you pick something up. So, and you can't get paid for it. That's double dipping. And I thought when I learned this, I thought, I teach school, I teach special ed, I do art with the kids every day. I have this one made, and I didn't. And when I finally sat down and tried to figure out why things weren't changing, even though I was being creative every day, I got the message that you can't double dip. If you're being paid for it, you're not getting spiritual credit. So now I have knitting, I have needlepoint, I have crocheting, I have gardening. I always have something creative that I'm doing in my life. And it isn't just, okay, I can check that box. It's like, what else creative can I do?
Yeah.
Where can I take this? And so in the there are 14 condominiums where I live now. And I put the word out and I said, anybody want to do a craft circle? You can bring whatever craft you're working on, and we'll meet together once a week, and we'll learn from each other. And it's constantly growing. And if you're not constantly growing, there's no purpose to this lifetime.
No kidding. I love that. I love the idea of a craft circle, because you are your own craft, really. What you're working on, you think you're working on your knitting, but in reality, you're working on yourself every time. I love that. So I have another question for you, because ironically, every time I've noticed personally, every time I want my outer world to change, I want something to be different in my experience and my awareness, something has to change inside me first. What have you found we have to be willing to let go of, or shift, or a mindset or something? What has to change before we can have that transformation?
I think it's different for everybody, actually. I know that I was very comfortable on the East Coast in Connecticut because that was my home. And my son from Nashville came out, and he was doing something in Boston, and we had dinner. And during dinner, I said to him, and it was out of the blue, I said, I think I'm going to sell the house and move. And he said, where are you going to move to? And I said, Nashville. And he said, oh, I didn't see that one coming. And I think that the biggest, if I have a message to give anybody, it's trust the synchronicities in your life, because they're the ones that are happening, because it is time to change. It is time to move. When I put my house on the market, and my friend and I spent every day, at least 2 or 3 hours on multiple listings looking for a place for me to move to. A year and a half, couldn't find anything that appealed. And when finally I got an offer on the house, I noticed that a condo had been reduced, and it was right within my price range. And I had the money in hand, and I called my son and I said, I want you to check this out. I think that's my place. And he checked it out. He said, it's very nice. Do you want to fly out and look at it? And I said, no, buy it and tell him it's cash and this is what I'll pay. And he said, Mom, you don't understand. You're supposed to barter. And I said, nope. Tell him this is what I'll pay and it's all cash. And he said, that's not the way. I said, it's my house, my money. And he did it my way, and they accepted the offer. And I had a number of things. I wanted a fireplace. I wanted a garage. I wanted to be by water, and have a place, to garden slightly. Well, when I moved in, I love it. First of all, the place to garden was small, which was appropriate for me at my age. And as I was walking around to see what other people did with their little garden areas, I noticed that right behind my condo, first of all, is a graveyard, which I love. 17 and 1800 people. I mean, 17 and 1800 the years.
Right.
And right behind the graveyard is a stream.
Oh.
Now, my son calls it a drainage ditch, but on the maps, it is a stream. So it qualifies as a stream. And I'm walking through the graveyard thinking, this is wonderful. This is this is great. A sign would be nice that I'm in the right place. Anytime you want to, drop an acorn on me or something like that, let me know. And there was only one gravestone that I could read. And it was Thomas F. Smiley. And the Smileys founded the little area that I'm in now, which was kind of cool. And Thomas had a sister, and we went back to our genealogy, and we looked up Thomas, and we looked up his sister, Henrietta. And here's the synchronicity. Henrietta was married to a man named Aaron DeLong, who is a relative.
Oh my gosh! Yeah, you came home.
I did. I immediately called my son and said, "I'm more Southern than you are." And he said, "And how do you figure that?" I said, "I have kin buried in the backyard."
Doesn't get more Southern than that. Kin in the backyard. That is awesome, Barbara. Well, obviously, you have gone through your own spiritual growth, over the years. And I would love to get a couple of tips, baby steps that we could take that would keep us going in the right direction. You mentioned creativity. Is there
Absolutely.
anything else in synchronicities? Keep an eye out for synchronicities. Anything else that would help us really progress on our spiritual journey?
Well, the important part of the spiritual journey is making a connection with the spirit that you carry within, that seed of the infinite that all of us have that animated us into life. And in order to get to that seed, it is the element of creativity, but it's also paying attention to the synchronicities that happen in our life. And if you experience and we all do, we think of someone and they call, we look for a parking place and it's there, they're, and the more you keep track of them and not thinking, but writing them down, because what writing them down does is creates an anchor within the physical reality, opens the channel to the spirit within. And the more you write down, the stronger that stream, that thread becomes to the spirit within, so that there is that communication that's there. And the more you pay attention to it, the more you acknowledge it by writing it down, the larger the synchronicities get. Obviously, having a relative in the backyard means I had a lot I wrote down.
No kidding. I love that so much, because I am a big believer that intention is very much like typing into spiritual GPS. This is where I choose to go and how I choose to feel about it. And when I make that statement and I write it down, and there's so much energy and gratitude around it, it's almost like I'm celebrating in advance that I'm already on my way, right? It's just like spiritual GPS. When you type in an address and you don't know how to get there, you're not obsessing over every single turn and where, and am I
Right.
going to make a left in 50 miles? You don't care. You're only focused on where you're going to turn right now. And you trust that you're being guided to the correct destination. And it's the same
Yeah.
with your intention. I love that. Writing it down really opens you to that spiritual connection so that you notice the synchronicities, you notice all the opportunities that are coming in, and you're well on your way. Beautiful. Wow.
Do you ever find that what you thought was the direction you were supposed to go wasn't what you thought, but you got better?
Yeah, that's the other thing that's so interesting. It's like I love to be inspired by a goal. And I
Mm-hmm.
know that that goal is a guiding light. It is not the destination. It's
Right.
designed to get me in action because I'm divinely guided everywhere I need to go. I had a detached retina, and I never got upset about it. I immediately hired angels and said, please return perfect physical sight. And while you're at it, I'll take perfect spiritual sight too. Thank you so much. And it's amazing what has been showing up for me. Everything is there to serve me. And when I
Mhm.
accept it and welcome it into my life as, oh, this is part of my spiritual growth. Back to the intention that we shared, all of a sudden I can relax. I can be excited. I can be delighted
Oh,
about
yeah,
everything that shows up. And isn't that kind of the ultimate sense of
absolutely.
peace?
It's also um, what vision boards do for us. Creating graphically creating a board with directions things we would like to accomplish, and it's okay to have more than one board going at a time. I had a group that we played together a lot, and we did vision boards once. And at one point, a year after creating them, we all brought the boards back, and we talked about what had occurred and what had not occurred. And one woman said, "Well, everything I had on my vision board has happened." And she said, "I'm going to make sure, though, that next time I put a full-time job on my vision board." She lost her job, but everything else came to pass. And, it was kind of like she wasn't focused on a job. She was focused on the manifestation. She got it.
Yeah.
But, and I looked at her and I said, "So do you really need the job?" And she looked at me and she said, "Not really." And so it was why she lost it.
Absolutely. It's really fun. I've got some friends of mine, a couple, husband and wife, and they do a vision board, but they do it around a doorway in their home. And on one side is the vision board, and on the other side are the actualized manifestations that they originally had on the vision board. So
Mhm.
when there's something that's kind of lingering on the vision board that they were really hoping it would pick up the pace, they go over to the actualized manifestation side and go, once upon a time, that was a dream and now it's real.
Yeah.
And so it's just a constant reminder we do create our reality, and we can have whatever we choose to experience, and we don't have to wait for the actual physical manifestation to feel it in our bodies now. We can celebrate in advance and feel that sensation now. So, man, Barbara, I could keep you here all day.
Wait, one more thing.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
We create our reality by our perception of it.
Yeah.
So if you're walking around saying, "Oh, this sucks and this sucks and this," it does suck. But if you turn it around, and isn't it fortunate that this happens so I can move forward? And it's your perception of what's going on in your life that creates your life.
Yeah. When you were saying that embracing challenges as a sign that you're ready to grow.
Yeah.
I totally agree with that. To me, it's like every time I run into a challenge, a roadblock, a problem, an issue, that is a neon sign from the divine going, congratulations!
Yes.
Here's your new big adventure. Yay! We believe in you. There's pom-poms. There's all kinds of marching bands. It's like, yay! She's finally made it to this point. Okay, you can do this. We believe in you. Go for it, honey. Go for it. So, it's actually kind of fun.
Yeah.
You don't resist anymore. Every time you feel resistance, that's an opportunity. It's like, oh, this is trying to get my attention because I'm feeling that not comfortable with this right now. Oh, that means there's an opportunity for me here.
I get calls from people, usually something's gone wrong in their life when I get the call. And it's like, I just lost my job. I don't know what I'm going to do. Congratulations. That is so wonderful. It opens you up to the potential that you've always wanted to go towards. This is exciting. What took you so long? And after they tell me I'm crazy, they get caught up in it and they realize this is an opportunity.
Yeah.
And then things start to happen.
And it's wonderful that you can give them that fresh perspective, right? Because we get caught up in our imagined demons, our imagined challenges, and they haven't even happened yet. But we play this tune like all these horrible things are going to happen. And wherever you put your attention, you get more of it. So if you put your attention, your focus on problems, all of a sudden you notice more nuances to those problems, and the problems beget more challenges and more issues and more, stuff that isn't a lot of fun. However, when you shift your focus by deliberately telling yourself, this is an opportunity to grow, this is taking me out of my comfort zone and putting me into a better experience than I could ever have imagined, all of a sudden, you step into something I call grateful curiosity.
Oh, yeah.
You don't know what's here, but you're interested, you're engaged, you're excited, you're really leaning in, and you're totally wide open to receive. And that's an incredibly powerful space to be in.
Oh, yeah. Somebody once asked me what were the greatest lessons I ever got in my life. And the answer was easy. My failures.
Yeah. Yeah. So true.
Yeah.
Because they're never failures. They're growth experiences.
Oh, yeah. But once I turned around and looked at them and thought, a stepping stone.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, man. Barbara, I'm telling everybody they absolutely have to tune into your show. Nightlight Radio is brilliant. It is so fun. It's 2 hours of fun where you're exploring spiritual ideas and information, and it's a great way to grow. You will meet some of the most fascinating people on the planet, or maybe even off the planet. No telling. No telling with Barbara. Now, Barbara, one of the things we always do here at the Abundance Journey, we love to turn the tables on our guests because we know that when we give, it's when we truly receive the most.
Yes.
So what is something that we can do to support you?
Well, I would say that my greatest support would be people looking for their inner joy and finding their own spiritual side and not looking at other people to do it for them because nobody can. The point of this lifetime is to really get in connection and attach to the spirit we carry within. And we're also different. It's different for everybody. And I guess look within, not without. And
So
don't let the trauma and the difficulties of the day, the outside world, in any way interfere with the inner peace that you have.
So true. Yeah, it's interesting because a part of the reason why I love to start my show with the 3 deep breaths and breathing in I am and breathing out consciousness, because when you do that, and you just take a few seconds to do that. You can do it in an elevator. You can do it when there's other people around. They won't know. They won't have any idea what you're up to. But it immediately puts you into this space of infinite divine grace. And you can choose to witness yourself and how loved and cherished you are by the God of your understanding. And it's just it's such a nourishing space to be in. So no matter what challenges you might have, 3 long, slow, deep breaths, I am consciousness, can take you to paradise and peace very quickly.
Absolutely. And also the paradiddle works too. Are you familiar with the paradiddle?
I am not. Tell me.
The paradiddle is it's, among other things, it is a very basic drum pattern. But if we take our left hands and right hands, right? Put the left hands and right hands down in front of you.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna say, I'm gonna give you left, left, right, right. I'm gonna and you go with me. So it's left, left, right, left, right, right.
Okay, you're gonna have to do it again.
Okay, it's left, right, left, left,
left, right, left, left,
right, left,
left,
right, right.
Okay.
Paradiddle, paradiddle. It harmonizes and balances the left and right hemispheres of your brain. And you can do a paradiddle on the steering wheel of a car. You can do it on your legs if you're sitting someplace and nervous. It is a wonderful stress relieving, and when they do it on the drum, of course, it sounds like a drum roll. But it's paradiddle, and on the diddle you do 2, and then paradiddle. So you're diddling back and forth.
I love it. Wow. Barbara, you are such a treat. And you've given me a real challenge because I was writing as fast as I could. You had so many brilliant things to say. And I have to pick just one for the Activate Abundance segment. Man, I'm just going to have you back again and again and again. This was so fun.
It would be delightful.
Oh, thank you so much for joining me, Barbara.
Thank you.
All right, everybody, stick around because we're going to activate abundance in just a moment. Abundance isn't something you chase. It's something you activate. Well, in my book, 5 Steps to Activate Your Abundance, I share the exact process that I learned from the divine during my near-death experience, my stroke, so that you can manifest with ease, joy, and confidence. This book is your step-by-step guide that shifts your mindset, helps you overcome fear, and co-create a life you love. And great news, it's available as an ebook, a paperback book, or an audiobook on Amazon. So just go to Amazon and look up 5 Steps to Activate Your Abundance and start living abundantly today. Did you know that 78% of people believe abundance is just about money? And that it's always out of reach? Well, that is a poverty mindset. But here's the truth. Abundance is a choice. That's why I named my TEDx talk, Abundance is a Choice. And in that talk, I reveal the secret to shifting out of scarcity and into flow and an abundance mindset. Over 325,000 people have watched so far, and now it's your turn. Just search for Abundance is a Choice on YouTube and start living abundantly. Oh man, I can't get enough of Barbara DeLong. She rocks my world in the best way. Isn't she brilliant and fun? And very approachable. She's so real. I adore this woman. Step 1 is gratitude. It's always gratitude because gratitude is the ignition switch to higher consciousness. Whatever you want to experience in your life, it starts with gratitude. So I always start there because it's so powerful. Lots to be grateful here. I really struggled over which one I was going to activate. But one of the really powerful things, step 2, acknowledge something you heard that was like mind-blowing, aha for you. At one point, Barbara said, peace is not imposed, it is embraced. Peace is not forced, it is embodied. I love that. Okay. Step 3, appreciate the difference it can make in your life when you take on and actually do step 2. Well, when I know that the only way I can experience peace is if I choose to embrace it and embody it, then it's completely within my control. I don't have to wait for outside situations to be perfect. I don't have to wait for anybody else to agree with me. I don't have to wait until the stars align. I can enjoy peace and tranquility and blessings right now. Right now. It's all up to me and it's my choice. It's my experience, and I'm creating my experience by choosing deliberately to embrace and embody peace, no matter what's happening in my world, no matter how things are showing up, no matter how other people are behaving. That is a choice I get to make. Whoa. Really mind blowing. I love that. Step 4 is activate it. Here's where we take a concept and we turn it into tangible physical reality. I've found 3 different ways to do this. The first way is to schedule time to get it done. And one of the things that I count here is journaling, because if you don't schedule time to journal, you aren't going to do it. And journaling is incredibly powerful. Remember at one point, Barbara was saying, write down the synchronicities. And I was talking about write down your intention, what you want to create. It's almost like you're celebrating in advance that this is what I choose to experience in my life. And when you journal, often your mind is just racing and you don't really know all the stuff that's rattling around up there. But when you write it all down until you reach that level of peace, and there's just nothing else to write, all of a sudden the patterns become really clear, and you do clear your mind so that you recognize the ways that you are embracing peace and embodying peace. But until you get that out of your head and down onto paper, you just don't know, right? That objective perspective allows you to achieve that experience. The second way to activate abundance is to create a physical trigger, like crossing your fingers or tugging on your earlobe. It's a way for you to remind yourself, I choose to embody and embrace peace as I walk into this experience. Like getting together with a family over the holidays, that can be a little contentious sometimes. When we choose to be the peace, to be the love, to be the tranquility, it's amazing. All you have to do is show up and be present with a gentle smile on your face so that you're witnessing other people. And you know what's interesting? People talk a lot about themselves because they want to celebrate themselves. They want to celebrate their own life. And they're looking at you for feedback and encouragement and to be that witness, that supportive witness for them and what they're happening and what they're doing in their lives. And so you play a really valuable role just by being present. So remind yourself, cross those fingers, tug on your earlobe. I choose to embrace and embody peace right now. And let it flow. Just be in the moment and savor your experience. The third way to activate abundance, in this case, peace, is to work with an accountability buddy. I call them action buddies. I don't call them, I call them abundance buddies because I'm all about abundance. And it truly is a way to bring abundance into your life because this is someone who loves you and appreciates you and understands you. And you say, look, I've got this commitment. I am choosing to embrace and embody peace at all times in all situations. So please call me on it if you see that I'm getting testy or I'm being defensive, or I'm not really showing up the way I want to be in the world, the way I choose to be in the world. And they can lovingly point out when you're a little bit out of alignment. And remember, there's nothing wrong with being out of alignment. All that means is, here's an opportunity for me to get back into alignment and increase the divine, increase the God of my understanding. Perfect. Yay. All right. Step 5, celebrate your progress. Isn't this an incredible journey that we're on? I mean, it's unending, but wait, there's more. And it's all pure joy when you choose to look at it that way. So good having you here. Thanks so much for joining me today. I'll see you next time for the Abundance Journey. I think your journey is worth celebrating. Have you had a breakthrough, a powerful insight, maybe an emotional shift? Well, I want to hear about it. Please share your transformation. You just might be featured on the Abundance Journey Show. Tell me what insight has changed things for you. How have you shifted your mindset, your energy, or your perspective? Now, here's a little secret. Maybe you didn't realize this. You can also celebrate in advance. Let us know what you're in the middle of manifesting so we can add our energy to yours. Just go to www.theabundancejourney.com/thank-you to share your story. And I'm going to celebrate your transformation with you.
You've been listening to the Abundance Journey Show with Elaine Starling. Visit theabundancejourney.com/podcast gifts to access today's gift, as well as gifts from our other guests. Tune in every week to activate abundance in your life and business. If something resonated with you, please share it with your friends so they can benefit too. Keep activating abundance, and we'll see you in the next episode.